right, welcome and welcome all you lovely folks signing on here. Thanks for being a part of this. That's great. Okay, good evening and welcome to Life Lessons from Unstoppable Women. Whether you are here with us live or listening to the recording, we are so glad that you've taken time to be a part of this. We want to start by thanking our sponsors. You can see the screen right now. We've got some incredible Frederick County folks that are here, just so kind making this happen for us. So please just take a moment, check out our title sponsor, FCB Bank. We've got a handful of amazing Empower Her sponsors, also the Support Her sponsors, Encourage Her sponsors, great design team, some media folks that help get the word out on this. So thank you to every one of you listed there for helping to make She Week happen. We appreciate you more than you know. All right, as you guys can probably tell, I am a little hype about all things She Week. I thought, okay, so if these folks can't come, into an event and enjoy all that we as the committee would have liked to do, to make it extra special, then I am going to bring that right into my living room. So we've got a little She Week action. We've got the stickers going on here. I plan to leave this up all week because it is She Week. So husband's going to have to just enjoy the color. If you guys were a part of Julie Gaver's first session yesterday, I would love you to put some love in the chat. I know many of us on this call were there, and she just kicked it off so beautifully. And I'm telling you, it's neat because coming into this session here tonight, you're going to be hearing stories that absolutely inspire. They educate, they inform, and they definitely entertain. So thank you, Julie, for the amazing kickoff to She Week. Glad you are here. I saw you in the list, so thanks for being a part of this. For those of you who I have not had the pleasure of meeting personally, my name is Amber Smith, and I am the energetic and passionate owner and publisher of Frederick Lifestyle Magazine. If you got a swag bag, you might be familiar with the pink action that was happening. It is honestly a joy and a pleasure to shine a light on what makes Frederick so extraordinary and special and beautiful, and it's truly an honor and a joy. So I'm particularly excited about today's event because really when I think about my journey and where I am today, it's so much of because of the unstoppable women in my life and mentors who are willing to point me in the right direction and help me through hard times. So I'm just really grateful to the 4 women that you're going to get to know pretty well today for taking the time to impart wisdom into your lives. So hats off to them, ladies. Thank you so much for your time and your wisdom today. Speaking of your lives, though, because we are wanting to make an impact on you, it'd be helpful for us, since we can't see your lovely faces and interact the way that we would in a normal presentation. We want to ask you some questions just to get to know you a little better. So we've got a poll question coming your way here. We just love to get to know kind of where you're at in your journey right now. Everything's anonymous, so you just go ahead and pop that number in. I'm going to go ahead and do that myself, and then these will generate and we'll get a whole bunch of answers coming through. So go ahead and put those in and we will get some answers here in a moment. I got a behind the scenes tech crew helping make this happen. Ladies, I don't see the populated answers at this point, if that's something you can share. Ellen Kaiser, you are not girlfriend. You are rocking and rolling. Old is not the word. Okay, here we go. We got some great results. And panelists, can you guys see the content here? Perfect. So yes, we've got a good mix. I love the 1% student that's representing. If you are from Hood College, I would love to know that. I getting a definite yes from Andrea. That's fantastic. Thank you for being here. And otherwise, we've got a great mix of people in all different seasons. So that is fantastic. Next question is, we want to know what motivated you to join us for this session. Obviously, there's a lot of different reasons you could come on here. If there's more than one answer listed there that speaks to you, go ahead and click that. I know for me, when I thought about doing this, I could relate to a lot of those. So go ahead and put your answer in and we'll get kind of a sense for who we're chatting with today. Have those results to you in just a moment. And I know that if for whatever reason one of those don't land specifically where you're at, I know that you are going to learn something of value today. So that is Exciting. So Kaylee is the Hood student, and she is excited to be part of SHE Week. Kaylee, I'm so glad you're here. That is awesome. Awesome, awesome. Okay, so we should have results coming in a moment. Okay, all right. So we got a couple entrepreneurs, it looks like. We'd have some definite fans of SHE Week. Okay, working professionals, eager to learn more. Wonderful. Yes, and thank you. Our number one is people that wanting to support and engage with the Frederick community. So you're in the right spot. All these ladies here are passionate about the Frederick community. So you are in good company. All right. Thank you for taking a moment to share that information with us. We're going to keep this party moving. No matter what motivated you to be with us today, we hope that each one of you walks away with a fresh mindset, feeling equipped, not just, inspired and moved, but as soon as you get off this call, you're ready to put some of those new action items and new thoughts right into action. I know that there's a lot of unstoppable women. I see these names, come through here, and some men too. I saw a couple of you. Thanks for representing. And I think all of you, I'm sure have a desire to keep growing and to keep learning and to become more unstoppable in your own lives. But I do want to speak to the few that may be on here and that, unstoppable is the last thing that they feel. And I want you to know that's absolutely okay. And you're going to learn from these women that there have been times that they've been in that same place of not feeling unstoppable. But the beautiful thing is the choices that they made to take that next step. And that's so much of why they are where they are today and on this panel because of those decisions. So just want you to know that you are in the right place, and we are excited to learn from them. So just to give you a little snippet of the kind of women you're going to be learning from today, we have Dr. Andrea Chaplain, president of Hood College, who not only worked incredibly hard to get to where she is, but she's currently leading basically a small city through a world pandemic, and that is a big deal for sure. We've got Crystal Mcguire, who is a courageous Army veteran who is running her own company, so lots of amazing life experience at a young age, and Dr. Denise Rollins, who has endured tremendous loss in her life, but has allowed her story to be used for good by starting Whole Heart Grief and Life Resource Center, and she's just serving many people in their time of need. So just a powerful woman, powerful story. And of course, Jessica Underwood, founder and principal of JR Capital Build, an incredibly successful luxury building and real estate development company that is blazing a trail for women in the building industry. So I will give you guys more on their background, but I just wanted to give you a quick, flyby of the type of women you're going to be learning from today. So I will just tell you that for me personally, getting to know these phenomenal women has been a highlight for this summer. Just kind of learning their backgrounds and what they've experienced. It's been very moving for me. The neat thing is they've all experienced moments and hardships and life-changing experiences that have stopped them in their tracks, and they've chosen to move forward and to take that next step. And I've kind of wondered for a long time, how is it that these certain powerhouse women, they break away from mediocrity? Like, what is it that helps them just, explode? And honestly, after getting to connect with more of them, that's becoming a lot clearer. So I am very excited for you guys to learn more about what that looked like in their lives. Anyways, we're going to jump into some more intros right into some housekeeping information. Like it said in your workbook, be ready to engage, right? So have your notepads out, your SHE Week glasses filled up, a snack close by, your phone on silent, because I don't want you to miss a moment of what we have in store for you tonight. And feel free to cheer on our panelists as they are sharing stories. You can go ahead and put some information there right in the chat. I want to give a shout out to our production crew. I've already given them a little highlight, but the fabulous Chamber Queens, VP of Marketing and Communications, Jennifer Gerlach, and Rockstar Member Services Coordinator, Caitlin Walsh. I see a lot of hands that I could see going up. I know many of you know these women have worked tirelessly. I mean, literally like around the clock to make SHE Week what it is. So girls, we appreciate you more than you know. Thank you for all that you're doing and for making this happen. So even though you can't see them, they are here. They're helping this thing run smoothly. If you have technical issues like I've shared before, go ahead and put that right in the chat and let them know if you need their assistance. at the end of this, we will leave time for question and answer. So if you're thinking of something you want to ask one of these ladies, go ahead and jot that down, and we will circle back to those. Not circle back, but we'll make sure we give you time to share on those things. I know we're going to go in a lot of different directions, so it's best to save those for the end. Do keep in mind this session is being recorded, so if something comes up where you got a child who needs your attention, or for whatever reason you can't finish watching, just know that this recording will be available on the Facebook group. So if you haven't joined the Facebook group, please do so, because the recording will be there either later tonight or tomorrow. All right, so one more thing before I give you a full introduction and background on these wonderful women. I want to know from you guys what unstoppable means to you. Like when you hear that word, what are you thinking? What comes to mind? It could be an adjective, it could be a phrase, anything with the word unstoppable. So go ahead and throw those right in the chat. Would love to just get a feel for what people think when they think unstoppable. Resilient, absolutely. Absolutely. Perseverance, yes, so true. Never give up. A bulldozer, never back down. Bust through the barriers, nice. I like it. Overcoming adversity. Strength, trailblazer. Keep on, keeping on, so good. No glass ceilings. I'm telling you, you guys have literally come to the right place with these women, because all these descriptions tie into what you're going to be learning about. And I love, Andrea, your heart hands. So good. So good. So perfect. Well, this is wonderful. We're all definitely in the right place for this. So I am going to go ahead and give you guys a proper introduction of our panelists. And there's no way for me to cover everything that I would love to cover about these women and their background. So I'm just going to read a brief snippet that just gives you some idea of who they are, what they've done, where they are now, and that will just set you up as you prepare to learn from them in our coming discussion. So I'd like to introduce you to the smart, inspiring, highly social, and extremely hardworking Dr. Andrea Chaplain. So glad that she can be with us today. She is a lifelong teacher and scholar who became Hood College's 11th president in July 2015. Her curriculum vitae is about the size of a short novel, so needless to say, her experience in the world of academia is quite extensive. Under her leadership at Hood, she has guided the entire college community through an inclusive strategic planning process focused on strengthening the college's academic programs, expanding students' experiential learning opportunities, and establishing a culture of data-driven decision-making. President Chapdelaine gives back to both the Frederick and higher education community in many ways, including serving as chair of the board of directors of the Frederick County Chamber of Commerce. Whoop, whoop. Yep, gotta give some love there, as well as serving as a member of the Rotary Club of Frederick, the Good Samaritan Club at Frederick Health, Heritage Frederick, and Friends of Baker Park. So does this woman love her some Frederick or what? So good. Andrea believes that her strength comes from her loving and supportive family and friends, and by surrounding herself with smart and passionate colleagues. As quoted from one of her favorite authors, Louise Penny, "Where there is love, there is courage." A virtual round of applause for Dr. Andrea Chaplain. Andrea, thank you for being here. And I know you can't hear everyone clapping all around, but they're doing it, I have no doubt. All right, next up, it is my pleasure to introduce you to the bold and relentless Crystal Mcguire. Built out of grit, ambition, and a whole lot of coffee. Hi, Crystal. So Crystal grew up in a farm town in Alabama as the daughter of third-generation teen parents to a father who didn't finish the 9th grade. Despite their background, though, Crystal's parents built a contracting company and made sure she got an education. Crystal was not about to fall into the "it is what it is" lifestyle that many around her seemed to settle into. She was the first in her extended family to go to college and headed off to Auburn, I love it, where she earned both a bachelor's degree and a master's degree. Fast forward to today, she's not only the president of her own company, but also an Army veteran, a mom, a wife, and entrepreneur. As the owner of Winsupply Frederick, she was the first woman in Winsupply's military veteran to local company owner program. Although she didn't have a previous background in electrical, plumbing, and wholesale, she had a strong background in honest hard work and blazing new trails. She is thankful for the leadership skills she learned in the Army and believes that a successful woman is the one who finds courage, because everything after fear is extremely worthwhile. And I couldn't agree more. Crystal, thank you for being with us today. So next up we have the wonderful Denise, and there are 4 words that I want to say when I think about Denise that I want you to know: driven, wholehearted, servant-oriented, and unshakable. I have been blown away learning about this woman's story and the fact that she is here with this beautiful beaming smile, despite what she has gone through in her life. So Denise has spent a lifetime embracing, overcoming, and educating others about the pain of what separates us, the power of facing the conflicts present in this moment, and the promise of allowing both to bring us together. Born and raised in Frederick, her resiliency comes from the diversity of her background, experiences, and education, and has inspired her passion for helping people work and grow through the conflicts that define life, loss, leadership, and legacy. This has become her life's work. She is the executive director of the Whole Heart Grief and Life Resource Center, where she wholeheartedly coaches and consults with individuals and organizations. Denise's diverse education includes a bachelor's in accounting from the University of Maryland, College Park, a master's in thanatology from Hood College, great choice, whoop, whoop, and a PhD in marriage and family therapy from Eastern University. Got a lot of Hood fans up in here. It's awesome. Her personal story includes surviving the sudden and tragic deaths of 4 loved ones, being a widow and single mom, and walking away from the perks of corporate America in order to pursue her dream and purpose. Each of these experiences and achievements has shaped Denise in ways that allow her to see, celebrate, and keep pushing for our individual and collective strength, heart, and equality as women. Thank you so much for that. It's beautiful, Denise, and we're so glad to have you with us. All right, last but most certainly not least, it's my pleasure to introduce you to the fierce and funny, intense and intelligent Jessica Underwood, who always rocks an awesome lipstick. She is the founder and principal of JR Capital Build, a luxury building and real estate development company located in historic Frederick, Maryland. Her background as real estate lawyer and commercial broker allows her to provide a multifaceted approach to property acquisition, development, and investment matters. Jessica has been named a 40 under 40 leading woman by Maryland's Daily Record and a woman to watch by Sass magazine. Her work has also received multiple awards from Frederick County Building Industry Association and has been featured by Martha Stewart, Hewlett-Packard, Huffington Post, Fox 45, Frederick Magazine, Frederick Lifestyle, and more. She sits on the board of directors for the Maryland Economic Development Commission and Frederick County YMCA. Jessica's unstoppable philosophy: accept everything, expect nothing, and be relentless. I love it. She is committed to encouraging more women to enter the building trades and real estate development, as well as creating affordable housing for the entire community. Jessica is proud mama to 8-year-old Judah, 5-year-old Wynn, and 4-year-old Vita. Love it. You go, girl. Glad to have you here. All right, so now that you've learned more about their backgrounds and achievements, I'm excited for you guys to hear directly from our panelists. So to kick this off, I've asked each of them to share a personal story that will help you get to know them better and understand how they've personally broken away from mediocrity. So, Crystal, I would love to start with you. If you can please share a little bit about your experience in the military and a time you had to take boldness to a whole another level.
I think that joining the military in general for me was a bold move. And it's because at the ripe old age of 29, I was just like at a point in my life where things weren't going where I wanted them to go. I wasn't, as successful as I wanted to be. So I decided to join the Army. And yeah, to my parents' dismay, they were shocked. They were not thrilled because they knew me as, very girly girl, very unathletic, very, not liking anyone telling me what to do. So they were shocked. And I kind of began this journey in basic training that was kind of representative of my whole Army experience, I think, because here I am in basic training at what is old in Army terms. And like I said, very unathletic. And I have a battle buddy at that time that is 19 years old. and literally half of my size. And I remember being in this exercise, this training exercise, where we are dug in, literally face down in the dirt, dug into little holes, and we're pointing our weapons at, pretend enemy. And, we're there for hours, and I kind of hear her crying. And I knew that she was crying because she really wanted to go home. But what was weird about that is that I had been crying a little bit too, because I was laughing at the fact that someone was paying me to lay in the dirt. So that was kind of like probably very representative of the whole Army experience for me. And being, I got a lot from the military. I met my husband and started a family, and it was just this really invaluable learning experience, the whole thing. But I think the absolute, to this day, hardest conversation that I ever had to have was in the Army. I was about a week postpartum or post-maternity leave. And I had to sit down with two commanders, a room full of men, and myself. And what they wanted to do was send me with my 24 soldiers on a training exercise. So in this training exercise, we go to an area that's totally secluded, and it's a chance for soldiers to train for battle with, the equipment, with the weapons, and, pretty much everything in real life scenarios. Well, I'm breastfeeding at that point. So I have to sit down and have a very real and very awkward conversation with my superior and another room full of men about how I was going to continue to breastfeed. And at that time, Army regulation was that soldiers are permitted to breastfeed, but the commanders are not necessarily forced to allow the lactating soldiers to keep and store their breast milk. So you'd pump and dump, right? And any woman that's been through this is like, no, waste, no, right? But the big thing for me was I was just back to work, and we haven't really I hadn't had enough time to stockpile enough breast milk for that type of leave, right? So, and the pediatricians don't really recommend swapping, very suddenly from breast milk to formula like that if you can help it. So I sat down and just had a very uncomfortable conversation with my commander that involved the words lactating and that involved the words breast. And, I'm thinking in my head that he's going to be, maybe he might be supportive and, he's going to come up with, okay, we've done this before. We can get through this. But no, he was above supportive. He got actually really creative. So in this room full of him and me and probably 3 or 4 other men that, were coordinating this entire event, right? We're sitting around and we are elaborating on it. We're not just, it's not an obstacle, right? It's not just something that we're working around. We include this in the training exercise itself, right? So we start bouncing ideas like, how are we going to store this? Okay, I've got a mini fridge. How are we going to hook up the mini fridge? That's easy. We have a communications tent. We're going to plug it into the communications, and we got to have communications anyway. We're going to have power. We're going to do training on how to set up a generator and keep everything running. It's going to be awesome. And then we keep thinking, and we're like, okay, so now we're going to need guards, right? Because they're just tents. Anybody can just walk in. So then we set up like an entire guard shift of what soldiers are going to be on guard, making sure nobody walks in on me. Right? Well, then it gets a little bit more dicey. So we start brainstorming about, in the event that my husband is going to run out of what little milk in the likelihood actually that he was going to run out of the stored milk that we did have. So the way that the training areas worked at that time, you could only take a tactical vehicle, a military vehicle, into that area. You can't just drive your regular car over to that area. So Now I'm sitting in a whole room full of other men in my husband's command and having the exact same conversation. And we're planning out this whole thing, right? So they're going to have to dispatch a vehicle. Well, a dispatch vehicle has to be driven by a driver and, someone else to go along with the driver. So there's two people at all times. This dispatch has to be signed off on by the captain. And at that time, a lieutenant colonel, right? So I spell out this entire plan to not only my command team, but his command team. And, there's just so many working pieces and everything. And we jokingly named this plan Operation Milk Drop. So we ended up actually not ever really needing to do the transport part of it. But it was a very valuable learning experience for me, because what I took away from it is I know that this isn't life or death. A lot of women, have been through this, and we tend to like really shrink sometimes when it comes to uncomfortable conversations. And, okay, I'll just figure it out. I'll just deal with it, kind of thing. And what I learned is that, yeah, maybe it's not life or death. And maybe it's a really hard conversation. And maybe it's really, really uncomfortable, really, really awkward, and sometimes ridiculous conversations. But they can be really worthwhile, And what I learned about myself was that I'm not, under any circumstances, willing to compromise what I need, and especially what my family needs, especially when all it is a conversation.
Wow. I love it. We've gotten some great reactions for sure in the chat from that. There were a lot of laughs, a lot of smiling faces, a lot of nodding and agreeing, knowing what you're going through. I think hashtag Operation Milk Drop is going to be something we're going to see around the internet, I am sure. But I just really love that despite the red faces and, the uncomfortable dynamic that would have brought, that you did what you need to do. I think that is very powerful and a lesson for all of us to learn. So thank you for sharing, Crystal. So good. All right. So up next we have Andrea. Andrea, I would love for you to share about a time that you felt like overlooked as a woman and decided you wanted to do something about it.
Well, first, let me say hello to everyone out there. So glad that I was asked to join you today and do this. And I want to say thank you on behalf of the Chamber for participating in She Week, and love to hear your feedback about the week. I'm glad to see all the great comments that things are going very well. It's a real honor to serve as the board chair right now. And She Week has definitely become a great signature event for the Chamber, thanks to a lot of hard work. So thank you to all of you who have been making it happen. So I'm going to just talk very briefly about kind of a similar situation to what Crystal described. We were getting ready for this. I was laughing. I'm like, I've got all kinds of Operation Milk Drop stories I could tell you too. And I was thinking about the very uncomfortable conversation once I had in a rest stop. It was winter, so I was not going to be nursing my son out in the car. So we were traveling. I went inside. My son and my older son and my husband were sitting eating their hamburgers while I'm sitting there. And there's this, middle-aged, I would call them now. They're probably younger than me at this time. Sitting, having their lunch. Oh, what a cute baby. And, that usual cooing you get, strangers who just feel they can kind of take over your child. And we're having so I just immediately, of course, very naturally start breastfeeding this child. And they were just like, and the man said to me something like, don't you think you should go like in the bathroom to do that or something? And I said, I don't know. Do you feel like sitting on a toilet to eat your hamburger? You just don't mess with tired, exhausted, overworked mothers in the middle of a long trip, right? Before Christmas. Do you not? His face, he just like got up and left. So sometimes you got to speak up, right? No, Amen. I'm not going to sit on a public toilet and nurse my child. Sorry, not going to happen. Anyway, so good. The story I actually want to talk about is another uncomfortable conversation. I think the theme here is really, as hard as it might be to speak up, oftentimes you're surprised by the result and all your worst expectations of how mostly men are going to react to these kinds of uncomfortable conversations largely are probably bigger in your head than they're going to be. Now, it's not always going to turn out well, and you're going to have these very difficult moments on your path, but it's the trying is the important part. So unstoppable doesn't mean we always achieve. We just don't stop, and we fight for what is right for ourselves and our family, as Crystal said, and for our colleagues and for our mentees and so forth. So I actually participate in another board. I am not talking about the chamber here, full disclaimer. This is not a board that anybody in the local area would know. And they have a very strong kind of tradition of how one moves through that board to positions of leadership. And I had very slowly moved through that process, so that I was kind of what is considered the third position to the chair. And so I was the secretary, then the vice chair, then you become the chair. And there was a sudden disruption on that board, such that both within about a month, the chair and the vice chair were no longer part of the board. So they had these vacancies. So the entire board was sitting and talking about what to do with this. And they immediately started talking about other people who were on that board who had never served in any of the leadership, all male, I might add, sort of hopscotching right over me and becoming chair and vice chair of this board. And I have to say, for a few minutes, I was just like, is this conversation even happening? Like, do they not see how unreasonable this is? So let's talk about this for a minute. And, I said, I kind of played a little dumb. I just really want to understand what the issue is and why, at least when it moved to the vice chair role, yes, earlier than would be expected, but there's these vacancies, so we need to fill them. But really, reasonably, I should be the chair. And there was just crickets for several minutes, because they realized they had no defense for what they were saying. And what I said was absolutely right. So they kind of said, okay, of course, and moved me into the chair position. I mean, there was definitely awkwardness, and it took a little while for them to get used to that concept. But then I immediately said, and I think the one other woman in the room should be taking my place as secretary. And they were kind of like, so I pulled somebody right along with me, which was the right thing to do. And to know that I'll be succeeded by a female was a really good thing. So the funny thing about this is, as soon as I had done that and sort of walked out of the room, I'm like, I don't want to be chair of this board right now. I've got a lot on my plate. I'm chair of the chamber board. I'm chair of another organization. The last thing I need to do is this chairship too. But I'm glad, like, my instinct sort of took over in that moment, and I didn't back away. And it's actually been really fine, because I've got a great vice chair and that woman supporting me. So sometimes, even if it's going to be hard on you to take on that leadership role, if it's the right thing to do, you have to speak up.
Wow. It's so good, Andrea. Thank you so much for sharing. I laughed out loud, actually, when she and I were talking about this story in preparation for tonight, because I love that even though it wasn't even maybe the right time or ideal for her schedule, she was like, no, this is the principle of the situation here, and I'm going to take on that extra responsibility for that purpose. And so I just really, really commend that and love that story. Wonderful. So Denise, we are going to hear from you next. We would love to know more just about what you've endured and how you've been able to use your, immense pain and grief and layers of it, years of it really, for a greater purpose, and what that journey looked like. We would just love to hear that from you.
Okay. Thank you, Amber. And I'm loving hearing everybody's stories, because it is giving me inspiration. My story goes back almost 10 years to the day when I was at a crossroads, and I was working for a Fortune 100 company. And really what brought me to the crossroads was what had happened 1 year before that. When I was 44 and my first husband was 49, he died suddenly. There were technical reasons, but I always felt like the underlying cause was grief. And here I was left, we were college sweethearts. And they always say, till death do you part. And I always thought that death would be when we were both just much older, not 44 and 49. And for that next year, I struggled to take care of my sons. I never expected to be a single mom. And here they were, 11, 14, and 17. And I felt so ill-equipped to be their mom all by myself, but I did everything that I could to make sure that their lives stayed the same, but also that the job that I did professionally, that I still maintained the same high standards. And I thought that was so until 2010, when the executive that I reported to pulled me into his office. And he gave me a sage piece of advice. He said, Denise, no matter what happens to you in life, you should always keep a smile on your face. And that seems very wise, but in the moment, I really could have jumped across that desk and punched him in the face, literally. Because here I was struggling with these 3 sons, and here he was, he had a stay-at-home wife. He didn't know what it meant to bring a life back together when suddenly it was all ripped from you. And that moment, I did the polite thing in the meeting. I smiled, I thanked him for his advice. And when I walked out of the room, I realized that I needed to ask myself a question. And it was this: if I knew that I only had like 5 more years to live, like my husband who had died at 49 and my mom who had died at the same age, would I be doing what I was doing at the time? And the answer was a clear and resounding no. I had the position of prestige. I had the paycheck, a 6-figure salary, a 5-figure bonus. I had the perks, things like Mediterranean cruises, but I did not have peace. Mm-hmm. And so it was in that moment that I prayed that I would be able to give birth to my purpose. And what's really interesting is that literally 9 months later from that moment, I walked into my executive's office. By then the personnel had changed, but my heart had not. And I slid across the desk my resignation. And I remember I framed the letter afterwards. I remember he could not pull himself together. He's like, I got to get my arms around what you're doing. And the craziest part of the story is I didn't even have a job lined up. All I knew was I needed to take that step in order to walk into my purpose. And the coolest part of the story, I think, is that a year after I resigned, I had the coolest weekend ever. On a Friday, I married my current husband on the 6-month anniversary of our first date. He's a funeral director, woohoo, who everybody wants to date a funeral director, right? And then on the Saturday, I graduated from Hood, which I was like, my Hood ring. I finally got that Hood ring with a degree in thanatology, which is the study of grief and death. And then that Monday, I started my PhD in marriage and family therapy. And when I look back on it, it's a wild, crazy story that I wouldn't advise everybody to do. But I also know that sometimes you have to follow your heart, even if it doesn't make sense to everybody around you. And as long as you prepare yourself and prepare the way, I think you'll be okay. And
wow.
That's my story.
Oh, Denise, thank you for sharing with everybody. Guys, as you can imagine, when we were chatting a little bit, getting to know each other, this girl was waterworks all the way over here, just amazed at what she was able to endure and how she's able to help so many people now because of what she's endured. And her husband now, you guys are a powerhouse for people going through some of the most intense and hard seasons of their lives. So I'm just so thankful that Frederick has you guys and has your dedication for these types of things. It's just very, very powerful. So thank you for sharing that story and your boldness, to take that leap of faith and move towards your purpose. I think a lot of people end up in that spot and they feel stuck because it's a scary step to take, and there's a lot of risk and what, the what ifs really can, infect people a lot from moving forward. So thank you for sharing your story about what came about when you took that leap of faith. So good. All right. So Jessica, it's not every day that we see a woman crushing it in the building industry. I remember the first time I saw the cover of Sass magazine. I know most of y'all got one of these, or everyone should have, in your swag bags. And I was like, okay, this girl is fierce. She is not playing. And I'm sure you guys felt that way too. I mean, who knew a construction hat could look so stunning? So anyways, kudos to Sass and to you too, Jessica. So we would love to hear about your journey and how you decided to venture down this career path.
Thank you, Amber. And I also just want to say thank you to the Chamber for allowing me to sit virtually with these incredible women, and also to our moderator who has been so fabulous in making this process really enjoyable. So thank you. So I got to hear Denise's story for a second time after our drive on, and I just, her message of sort of sometimes the barn has to burn down to see the moon also really resonates with me. I started out actually as an attorney, originally a patent litigation attorney. And as embarrassing as it is to say now, that decision was solely attributable to a fictional character named Claire Huxtable from The Cosby Show. That was really the only reference point I had growing up of a professional, successful woman. It just wasn't something I was exposed to. I wasn't around a lot of adults. I never knew a real estate developer. I never knew a builder. I never knew the president of a women's college or a college. And I never had anybody to track except for her. And even more insane is that I was, even until my first day of law school, I had never met a lawyer or even really knew what a lawyer did. So fast forward through 4 college degrees, including my law degree, fairly successful law career, and just a long, arduous path. And also sort of like Denise's story, you know, in the process, and I think everybody has had this at some point where they set a huge goal for themselves and they reach that goal and it doesn't feel as fabulous as you think it does or as you think it would. And so at that point, I sort of had to hit a reset and figure out like what is meant for me. And I knew being just a practicing attorney and that's it, wasn't what I was cut out for in life. And it was a hard fact to face because I had spent so much time and so much energy and so much money getting to that point. But I was really driven to find what it was that would satisfy my soul. And I just remember years going by trying different things and continuously wondering, like, am I going to retire and still never find that thing that will light my fire? So through that process of seeking, I was at a fundraiser for Governor Hogan one year, and it was solely composed of real estate developers and builders. And I just remember this being a very pivotal night in sort of my life. And I was standing with my friend, at the time I was in-house counsel for a real estate development firm. And I was standing with my friend, Kara, who was assistant to Governor Hogan at the time. And I said, hey, like, introduce me to some of the women real estate developers here, just for networking. And she goes, yeah, there are no women real estate developers here. They're all the wives of the male real estate developers. And that struck me because it was a very unique event in a lot of ways. There was a lot of power in the room. There was a lot of money. There were people who made huge decisions and that could move things forward in a very, very unique way that I had never sort of seen behind the screens before. And so while dialoguing in these groups with these different people, I started to sort of like fantasize, like, what if like we just accepted, like, as a society, you know, I walk into that event and all the real estate developers were women. Like, what would it look like? What would the conversations be like? Like, how would that, you know, and all the men were the husbands. If all the power players were women, like, how would life change? And just so how the world aligned. A few years later, I ended up buying some lots, and I very intentionally decided that I was going to start building. And until that point, I had built houses for myself personally, but I had never built for other people. And I didn't know how much I was going to love it at the time, but I felt a pull, and everything just sort of lined up. So I followed that path. So I had gotten my bank loan for my first build. I had the lot. I had all the subs lined up, all the bids. It's a lot of pre-development work, months and months of pre-development work, even before we break ground in building. And so one of the things I did was I got 2 SBA business counselors. And when Obama was in office, he put together this great like small business program where they provide free business counseling for small business owners. So I got an accountant and I got a construction coach. So I had my list of questions, and the coach was, he was from a big GC, general contracting firm out of DC. And all I had lined up for the session was just like technical questions that I had before, you know, I was going to start, because I was GC in the project. And so I sat down, and he spent every single second of the next 60 minutes tried to tell me every single reason why I was going to fail, why I couldn't do it. He didn't build his first house. He didn't think I could build my first house. Even he paid somebody to do it. I should hire somebody the first time and then learn from them and then do the next one. There was no way it was going to work out. No way. No way. And I kept trying to turn the conversation back, like, okay, but you know, I think if I space the studs 24 instead of 18, it's going to increase our energy efficiency. And you know, he kept steering it back to, yeah, but you don't need to worry about that. Like, just, you know, I mean, just hire somebody else to do it, like I said. So I walked out of that room after 60 minutes, painful 60 minutes, and it didn't faze me at all. And I've since thought about why that was. And it wasn't because I'm so confident, even though I am a very confident person to do what I do, and I know I can do it, but that's not why it didn't faze me. The reason it didn't faze me was because at that time I had 3 key reference points of other builders, 3 other builders I knew who had started their companies with less knowledge, less experience, less resources than I had at that time. And all 3 of them had gone on to become multi-millionaires, very extraordinarily successful. And I knew that if they could do it, I could do it. So I really attribute the success of my company to key reference points as sort of the crux of the success. When I started JR Capital, I had those 3 reference points that I didn't have when I was starting my legal career. One really cool person who I have as a role model, her name is Elaine Bennett. She owns an apron company in LA, and I actually met her at a Martha Stewart event in New York one time. And how she says, she has actually on the side of her building, it says, if the front door is locked, climb through a window. And it's so important having that social network to be able to track people who have done it before you. And so many times life will beat you down and you'll feel downtrodden. And just like, you know, it's the difference between like, maybe I'm just horrible at this and I should quit, or calling your reference point, your key reference point, and saying like, look, you know, am I just horrible at this? And they'll tell you, oh no, I've done that like 10 times before. Like, don't even worry about it. Like, everybody does that. Don't even worry about it. So the last part of the story is a year later, I was leaving my accountant's office and I passed that guy in the hall and I didn't recognize him. Actually, my accountant told me this afterwards. And he walked in and he's like, hey, so whatever happened to that woman? Like, did she end up starting the company or did she build the house? Like, what happened? And my accountant's like, oh yeah, she's on her 3rd house by now. So she's doing really well. And by the way, her first house won best custom home that year. So whatever you said, it must have worked.
So good. Oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't help but start clapping. If you had anything else to share, Jessica, go right ahead. I just love that like mic drop moment. You know, oh, and by the way, it also won awards. So great advice, buddy. Great advice. Oh, it's so good. There are so many things I want to highlight from that story, but the 2 that I want to share. I love that when you're at that fundraiser and in that moment, instead of going, oh, this is how it is, you know, men, you know, dominate it. It was like, oh, so I need to blaze a trail. Cool, on it. You know, like there was no, I think a lot of times we'll be in situations where things are a certain way and we kind of succumb to that, as opposed to thinking, yeah, well, what if, you know, we did this or did that. And so I think that is super neat. And then the whole piece on reference points, I think that was so key, because I think it would be really easy for anybody to just take to heart whatever that expert is saying to them. And you're like, you're not the one I want to listen to. So.
Yeah, it's so important. I mean, I just recently heard Madeleine Albright didn't have her first job until 40 years old. And she's the first female Secretary of State. So knowledge of people like that who did things that you didn't even think were possible, I mean, I think it opens your mind to everything.
It's so good. It's so, so good. I love it. Well, before we jump into more questions, I'm going to actually go to the chat because I have seen some great comments come through here. And I just want to highlight a couple because I know we've got our listeners here are just totally locked into what you guys are sharing. There has been a lot of action on here. Guys, thank you for being so in tune and coming along for the ride with us here. So let me come out and see some of these comments. What if all the power players were women? I love it, Julie. That's awesome. So good. Yes, always amazed when you leap and land on your feet in a better place. That is super true. A lot of comments on your cover, Jess. So great. Someone's making me laugh here with their eyes are sensitive. I'm sure they were feeling that with Denise's story. Yep, Denise, you definitely were stirring a lot of hearts in your story. Amazing. Yes, guys, great comments. Just so you know, Dr. Rollins, your mantle is gorgeous. Comment from Stacy Smith. So backgrounds, they're key. I needed to take that step to walk into my purpose. I love it. Ashley Chin, hey girl. Thank you for sharing that. Let me get 2 more of these comments here and we'll get back to some questions. All right, let's see. Yes, Amanda Rodriguez. I love that putting your family's needs first, how important that was and just her respect for that. So many times women feel that they aren't allowed to show their families are important if they still want to be respected in their careers. So great point, Amanda. You can do both. You can take care of your family and have really successful careers. So that is awesome. Tanya, #speak up. Love it. That's so true. So good. So good. Guys, thank you for these comments and just engaging with us. We're enjoying all of them. So keep them coming. All right, we're headed to our next set of questions. And I told you all from the beginning, these women are fierce. So I know you guys are enjoying this and I'm so, so glad. What I'd love for them to do next is to share kind of a specific lesson, if you will, that they've learned and action steps that they've taken that have helped them arrive at where they are today. So this is kind of what I was speaking to earlier about some of those like, okay, I'm going to specifically do that next, or I'm going to change my mindset on that. So I'm going to start with Andrea. So Andrea, a 2017 study shows that only 30% of college presidents are female. I'm confident you have not had an easy road to become president of such a reputable college. So can you share an important lesson or 2 that you've learned on this journey?
Hey, I will try. It's been interesting to hear all these stories and just loving it. So I think, there's a lot of lessons learned along the way, but if I was trying to distill down to some of the most important ones, or the things that I, looking back at those reference points, as Jessica was saying, see is really important to getting me to where I am right now. One is, just a lot of hard work. You always have to be willing to do more than your job. You can never say, because I think a lot of times you have to volunteer for those opportunities that are going to give you the professional development that you need. And that doesn't mean somebody else is going to pick up the rest of your work, right? So you have to be willing to say, I want to do that, even though it's that many more hours, that much more time on the job. We do, I think, have to work harder to get ahead. And that's not fair. It's not just, but I think it's a fact. So even if sometimes you feel it's frustrating that you're being asked to do more, look at those as experiences that are going to help you get to the next level. The other thing I think is really important is you're not just doing those to be exploited, if you will, and to be taken advantage of because you're the one always raising your hand and saying, I'll do a little bit more. You have to make sure that's being done with people who are willing to support that and help you get to the next level. So when I look at my career, it's all about mentorship. And I think that's why I ended up in higher education, because I realized it was the folks who mentored me that really have made all the difference. And so being able to try to do that for our students in whatever way I can is really where drives my passion. And so you really need to be able to say to those people who are going to be important mentors to you, listen, this is what I need. This is where I want to go. And these are the experiences that I need in order to get there. Or you need to tell me, what are those experiences that I'm not having right now? What are those expertise points that are gaps right now on my resume. So how do I fill them in? What can you provide for me to make that happen? And if the answer is, well, just do your job and don't worry about that, that's the time, as Denise said, to push the piece of paper across the desk. You can love your current job and you can think, I may never want to leave this job, and that's great, but you always want to make sure that you're keeping those doors a little bit open and that those opportunities and that growth learning can always happen. And so I think that's the second thing. Work really hard, look for those opportunities, but also make sure somebody's watching out for you and giving you those opportunities. And if that's not happening, then I think it's time to look for the next position if you need to.
Awesome, Andrea, that's very good. I remember too, in our conversation, you were talking about when you specifically voiced to that one mentor in your life that you wanted to be a college president, and their, input on your life and the steps you needed to take, right? You had said that that was a really key piece to basically preparing to become what you're doing now.
Well, it was very similar to what Jessica described, because when I first said that to him, and I honestly was not sure if I really wanted to do that, but I figured I better explore it, because really that was the right, most presidents came from the position I was in at the time. He kind of laughed. I mean, he really, I don't think he meant to quite do that. But, he just said, you are so not ready for that job. And I was like, okay, let's get to it then. What do I need to do to get ready? It really was that moment of, well, I will show you I can be a good college president. And, he is my biggest fan. He is one phone call away, always, to guide me. But he took it. He said, you're right, so let's get you there. So, it was the right mentor. It wasn't the one I had to hand something across the desk to, but he motivated me by saying, not yet.
Yes. Wow. I love that. I love that. And it's just, so neat, because his willingness to say, hey, here's the things I think you should work on. And actually, as I was reading through your background and whatnot, there were things you said that he, specifically pointed out you should work on, and you are highly excelling in them now. So I was just like, I just love that when you're willing to hear, maybe a hard thing from someone else you respect, that is a good reference point, and then you follow their direction, and, it takes you somewhere beautiful. So great story. Thank you, Andrea, for sharing. So Denise, have a question for you. You have helped so many people navigate all sorts of challenges in life. I know that you have, a lot of experience in grief, and even in studying grief, not just your own experiences, but what's one lesson you've learned that has deeply impacted your journey and those you've been able to serve?
Well, the lesson that is resonating with me in this season is that the ability to work and grow through conflict is a superpower. And I really think that's important for us to hear as women, because sometimes we are socialized and raised to not create waves and not create problems. And we think of conflict as a negative thing, but I just recently was working on a project with another woman, and we were both powerhouses. We both are. And there was constant rubbing against one another. And what I believe is, and I kept telling her through the process, this is good that we disagree, because iron sharpens iron. Mm-hmm. And it is, I think it has been one of the most powerful collaborations that I've had, because we didn't have to be polite. We didn't have to worry about our words. We spoke from a place of truth and love, and we were able to work through it. A good friend of mine recently told me that she read something that said, every single day you should do something that makes you uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And I think that being uncomfortable and change, that's all what conflict is about. And it's sometimes necessary for us to be uncomfortable in order to make a difference. And that, to me, the greatest example is the period of social and racial unrest that we have in the country right now. That our willingness to have the uncomfortable conversations, while in the moment we might rub against each other and it hurt a little bit. In the end, I think that we will be better for it. And especially as women, once we find our voices and have confidence in our voices, then the conflict isn't so bad anymore, if that makes sense.
Oh, it makes perfect sense. I love that. That's resonated with me. Conflict is a superpower. You know, it's not something you hear every day, but when you really think about it, it's powerful, you know, and I think it's just beautiful, you know, that you're in the position that you are now in terms of what's going on in the world and really helping people lean into this in a way that's going to be healthy and that's going to bring about good. So thank you for sharing that. And I have to totally agree with you. All right. So Jessica, we know that blazing trails and pioneering new opportunities for women does not come with its own hurdles or setbacks. So, and you share with us a lesson you've learned that's helped you overcome those obstacles.
Sure, Amber. So one of my favorite books, and more importantly, one of the most formative books that I read in sort of my late teens, early 20s was, of course, Ayn Rand's Fountainhead. And there's a great passage towards the beginning of the book where Howard Roark, the main character, is leaving school. And he's going to pursue his dream to do this contemporary architecture. And the headmaster says to him, "But my dear boy, who will let you?" And he comes back with this cold, emotionless, sort of exacting response. And he goes, "The question isn't who is going to let me. It is who is going to stop me." And that is so ingrained in me at this point that I don't even consciously think about it. But really, when you're on a path to a certain objective, the difference between I'm not sure whether this is going to happen for me or not, and I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure I get the result I want, is really the difference between, you know, that's unstoppable. And I think in my 20s and part of my 30s, I was definitely in a, I don't know whether this is going to happen for me or not. And even when like you say it, you have to put your hand, you have to be like, I don't, you know, shrug your shoulders. Like, I don't know if this is going to happen. You know, your voice changes. And then compared to, you know, I am going to do everything in my power to make sure that I get the result. You don't have to you have to sit forward. You have to like bring that alpha energy. And, you know, it goes back to sort of Ellen's, like, if you can't get through the front door, if the front door is locked, climb in through the window. And I do think about that, and I think about it often. If somebody tells me no, if somebody tells me I can't do it, if somebody tells me it's not going to work, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't have enough experience, what else? On a personal level, if somebody breaks up with me, if a guy breaks up with me, there's only one word going through my mind in any of those scenarios, and that word is next. Because the non-negotiable part of success is staying the course. And when you are on that course, the universe will conspire to help you, but not every door is going to be open. And sometimes you will have to climb through the window. But 100% of the time, there's going to be people who get in your way. And the choice that, you know, you have to make is, are you going to let that one person get in your way? And if it's me, the answer is no.
The answer is no. I love it. I saw some other women saying in the chat too how they got goosebumps with the who's going to stop me. You know, it just that confidence of like, it's not even a question, you know, it's like, what, you know, that's not even something you're entertaining. And I think that is part of why you are where you are, because of your mindset. It doesn't waver. You're not wasting energy wondering, you know, if you're going to get there. It's how you're going to get there. And so I know in our conversations before, Jessica, we were talking a lot about just overcoming, you know, obstacles or rejections, right? And not letting those get in the way of where you're wanting to go. Because like you're talking about with the window, it's looking at, okay, if I can't go this way, so did I go this way? Am I going up? Am I going down? Am I going over? You know, and having the ability to look at that and find a way to move forward. It's literally being unstoppable. So such a good story for today, or a good lesson. All right. So Crystal, you were the first woman, or first female to go through the Winsupply Manager in Training program. So tell us a little bit about that experience and a powerful lesson you learned when you had to make a decision to take the easier road or the harder road.
Well, first of all, I really liked what Denise was saying about do something that makes you uncomfortable every day. And to play on that a little bit, one thing that I've definitely learned through this experience is also don't be afraid to make other people uncomfortable, because I feel like as women, a lot of times we do have that fear of, wanting, and that just that wanting to make other people comfortable in what we're saying and, just how we talk. So after Operation Milk Drop, and I decided to get out of the Army, I found myself, looking for a civilian career. And even though I consider the military a male-dominated field, I was very surprised to find that almost all people still ask that question in interviews. How do you think you're going to handle working in a male-dominated field? And I'm like, I'm sorry, I was just in the Army, So it always took me, caught me off guard. And, I had a little bit of chip on my shoulder. I'm like, what are they talking about? Like I'm in the Army. I'm actively seeking a job and I'm still in the Army. Why are you asking me this? So I kind of just got over that little hump of, not wanting to make other people uncomfortable or wanting to make people more comfortable. And so, I became okay with, possibly making someone else uncomfortable. And then I started answering them the only way that I knew how, and explaining in great detail the logistical symphony that was Operation Milk Drop. And the funny thing is, like in the military, people hear lactating, they hear breast, and they blush a little bit, but whatever, right? Keep moving. But I learned that just in the civilian world, the word breast and lactating, 5 shades of red, like it is very, very uncomfortable, throws everybody off base. So I just assumed that a lot of these people weren't interested in hiring me. I kind of felt like I was taking a little bit of a risk by even mentioning that story, but I didn't have another answer. There was no other answer, right? And I was kind of in this place where I was afraid that I wouldn't get, hired, and then I found Winsupply. And I was actually the first female through the Winsupply Manager in Training program. So there was that. I felt like that I was taking a little bit of a risk there. It's always uncomfortable being the odd woman out, or being the first anything. But it was such a great opportunity. I couldn't, let that stop me. And the program was actually designed by Winsupply, and they concentrate a lot on hiring leaders from the military through a 1-year training program. And the reason that they kind of do that is because they believe that we already have that leadership part. It's easy then to teach us the industry. And if you don't know what Winsupply is, we're wholesale distributors for various construction supplies. A lot of them are plumbing, a lot of them are HVAC or industrial. I happen to be electrical and lighting. So the business model is really, really unique. And that's what drew me to it. And once I heard about it, I was just like latched on, I couldn't think about anything else. It's built to inspire ownership. So they teach us from the ground up. We go into another training company and we start out sweeping the floors. We start out driving a truck. We start out receiving inventory and stocking the shelves and working a counter. And we go through this whole year of training under a mentor to learn how to be, and be a president and run a business. And then the goal is for the MIT to then eventually, after they're done with the program, take over another Winsupply. So possibly one that's underachieving, or somebody is retiring and they need, a succession plan. So that's generally the road that people go on. But mine was a little bit different. For some reason, I'm attracted more to the hard road. instead of the easy road, like in my mind, I don't know what's going on. If I think that it's going to be more worthwhile or something in the end. But I decided to do something a little bit different. I got to visit Winsupply. I got to visit Frederick here before there was a Winsupply. And I fell in love with just the community, with the area, with where I was, like there was weather. I was coming from Texas, by the way. There was weather and it was amazing. And I just kind of fell in love with the location. And, I got to tour the Frederick Noland, which is also a Winsupply company. So, they always did really well with their plumbing and their HVAC departments, but they needed a little bit of work with their electrical department. So I was brought in with the intention to spin off the electrical department into a completely separate company to coexist with, the Nolan company. And by the way, I was 7 months pregnant at this time. And I feel like all of my stories, I'm pregnant or nursing or something. But so I moved my family across the country to start something new, something different. Being the first female through, that wasn't enough. And I just got here, and it's been very hard. It has not been easy at all, and it still isn't. But I love it in every possible way. Every obstacle, every triumph is, something awesome that I take really personally. And we opened officially Winsupply Frederick Electrical in September 2018. And within our first 12 months of opening, we did over $6 million in sales. So we're getting there.
Amazing. Oh, that's so good, Crystal. Thank you so much for sharing about that. And I just try to put myself in your shoes, like moving, new place, starting a company, 7 months pregnant, which I can't relate to yet, but I just can imagine what that must have really been like. Exactly like Cynthia says, baller, like it's so cool. And to see the success of your company. And I think a lot of people can relate to that sentiment of just loving Frederick, being drawn to Frederick. So we're so glad you felt that way and decided to bring all that you are to our community. So excellent choice. And we are cheering you on as you continue to grow this business. We've got more questions to come, but I realize that since we're not all in a room and able to kind of interact between questions, I am sure that other panelists that, potentially want to comment on something else that has already been shared. So I'm going to read a couple of the chat comments because we've got some great stuff coming through. And then ladies, panelists, if there's anything you want to comment on from any of the previous discussions so far, feel free. I'll give you an opportunity to share on that. I see Crystal laughing. I got to read.
Mo milk.
Mo milk. Julie gave her, man. She's keeping us out laughing. I love it. Mo milk. Yes, we're so glad she came here. Let's see. Yes, I love it. The first person you have to convince that you're going to succeed is yourself. So good. I love that. Next, watch out for it. So good. The one non-negotiable part of success is staying the course. And I'm pretty sure that is Kaylee, our Hood student. Great advice, Kaylee. So true. The non-negotiable part of success, staying on course. It's so good. So good. Lots of excitement, ladies, lots of exclamation points and a lot of cheering you on. So thank you so much, everybody, for what you're sharing here. I'm just going to say from Dawn, women should learn to embrace conflict because growth is found when we work our way through. That is very true. So good stuff. So panelists, before we jump into any more questions, you can give me a little wave and we can spotlight you. Is there anything else you guys wanted to comment on from what someone's been sharing? I'll give you a second to give me a little one of these. All right. We'll keep it moving. I know you guys have put some stuff in the chat too, so that is fantastic. All right, I am going to circle back to Denise here. So there's been a phrase, actually a few, Denise, since you and I have been getting to know each other, that's been resonating since our conversation, and that is profound pain to profound purpose. So can you tell our guests specific steps that you took to move out of your pain and into the calling in your life?
Okay. I do believe, because, I have had A lot of things happened to me, but so has everyone else. Our struggles, we all have struggles, they're just different. And I remember in the beginning, my question was always, why me? And what it changed to is, what now? Because if I stayed in and wallowed in, why does it have to be me? Then it wouldn't move me forward. So a couple of pieces of advice that folks gave me is, I have a really close cousin. And one of the things with each loss, she was beside me and she would always say to be gentle with yourself. And I think that most of my clients are women. And I can tell you for sure that women have this common trait of beating the hell out of themselves. They would say, what I should do, I should have done that. I mean, I should have been able to wear 15 hats and look like I came out of a beauty contest. And we hold ourselves to such high standards. And I had to remind myself more than once, it's okay if I didn't get anything done today. It's okay if I'm hurting today and I want to cry. And me allowing myself to step off of that superwoman mantle allowed me to be human and walk myself through my grief. Another lesson that I learned is intellectual curiosity, in the sense that whenever I do something, I often stand back from it and ask myself, I wonder what shaped how I saw this, how I approached it, what I did, why it's hurting me or bothering me at this moment. And what I love about it is it allows me to coach myself and help myself to move from one place to the other. Another lesson that I've learned is to be vulnerable. And that's a hard learned lesson. I'm the firstborn in my family, and there was always a responsibility that I had. I had to get it right. And I also had to keep my chin up and just take care of business. And I found that it was okay to show people my weak side and to admit that I didn't know it all and I wasn't sure about everything. And even in those moments when I looked like I was unstoppable, I still was questioning myself a little bit. And sometimes the person who looks like they have it all together absolutely doesn't. And so instead of looking at her as unflappable, sometimes we need to ask her, how are you doing? And really mean it and stop and listen. And that leads to my last lesson, which the work that I've done at the Whole Heart Center has taught me how to listen, how to speak, and how to respond to people in a wholehearted way. Wholehearted means without hesitation, reserving nothing, but to do that in a way that I make space for people to share their hearts, that I listen fully and without judgment, and that when I speak to them from a place of love, understanding, and connection. And living and communicating in that wholehearted way has probably been one of the greatest lessons of my life.
Wow. I think everybody's probably like me right now, just just hanging on every word you're saying, Denise. I am not playing. The comments coming through, people are just like, yes, amen, set me free, because it's just so true. So much of what you said, I feel like we can resonate with, and we should do this and should do this, all the talk, all the dialogue going on in there that can just be so heavy and such a burden and so limiting at times. And I love the way that you're able to look inward and ask yourself those questions. Where is that really coming from? And not only your ability to grow personally in that, but the way you're able to, give that gift to others. It's powerful. It's really, really powerful. So I think you're going to have a lot of new friends and fans after this, Denise. They're going to be like, help me, Denise. So good. Awesome. All right. So switching gears again, I'm going to go back to Andrea for our next question. So many women in the workforce feel the need to prove themselves and have trouble showing any kind of weakness. This is actually a perfect segue from our question with you, Denise. So Andrea, what are some specific lessons that you've learned that helped you grow as a leader and understand what real strength looks like?
Sorry, I just had a moment of muting there. So I am unmuted, correct?
Unmuted.
Okay.
Good to go.
Yeah, I think what Denise was saying, I just ditto, because it's very much what I would say. I think, well, let's put it this way. You mentioned before 30% of college presidents are female. The average age of a college president is 63. I was fortunate enough to become Hood's college president when I was 48. Um, you know, I'm 5'1" on a really good day with good heels. So, you know, I don't look like a college president. And in fact, a lot of times I will hear, oh, we thought you were a student. I'm blessed with young looking genes, and that's a good thing. But anyway, so definitely not being taken seriously for most of my career, because people don't even see me as fitting the role I'm in. So you really feel constantly, I guess I would say, on guard and always having to prove yourself, that nobody really is taking you seriously, or that you can really do this job. That short young female there's no way she can run a college. So I think what has been hard is not letting that actually defeat you in a way you don't even realize. Because the reaction of unstoppable women such as us is to say, well, I have to show that I'm always perfect and that I know all the answers, and I can do all this even when you can't. And ultimately, you're going to fall on your face if you do that, because nobody is perfect. People make mistakes. And in fact, you're probably making it more difficult for you to do your job, because, as Denise said, people aren't seeing that vulnerability, and they see you as unapproachable and not somebody necessarily they want to work with, because you're so focused on, it's all about me, let me show what I can do, and I can do this job. And so I think, over the years, as I gained more confidence in myself and I could silence those voices and start to believe I could do this, and this has happened at every stage of my career as I've moved in. I still remember being whatever I was young. I was probably about 26 when I stepped into a classroom with my PhD, and everybody's like, really? This person's going to teach us something? Like, she actually, so every step you have that imposter syndrome and people questioning you. But what I have learned is two things. First, asking for help when you need it. Asking when you don't know the answer, ask. Don't pretend, because you are not going to grow in that moment if you don't recognize. And real strength is admitting you're not the end all, right? That you are not always confident and sure of what the right answers are. And what you find is when you can lead that way by saying, hey, I don't have the answers, let's all figure this out together, you are going to surround yourself, as I am blessed with, incredibly smart, capable people who carry the water with you each and every day. And if you are going to be successful in your job, you need that kind of team around you. Nobody can do a leadership job alone, and they need that strong team. So hiring people who are smarter and better than you at the things that they do well, and being willing to say, I need help, actually is going to make you a much more confident and successful leader in the end. And I think it took me a long way to get past the imposter syndrome to admit that. But once I started doing that, I found not only that I was more successful, but man, I was so much happier, because I wasn't constantly feeling defensive, and I had surrounded myself with people who really were the best to work with.
Wow, that's so good. I can almost guarantee that most of the participants are feeling the same way I did, Andrea, when we were first talking. And I was like, wait, Andrea Chapdelaine feels imposter syndrome sometimes? It was like, what? It's so easy for us to put leaders like you on such these high pedestals, and they're so gifted and so smart. And so, like, it's almost as if for us, those things are not attainable, right? So hearing you say those things, it's like, I just feel like it sets us free to dream bigger and to recognize that to do what you do, you don't have to do it alone, and you don't have to have all the answers. You can still be such a respected, admired leader and not have to be perfect and not have the answers, all the time. And that you can give us a roadmap to look at what does it look like to become a healthy, thriving leader that gets to enjoy and thrive, in what they do. And so that's just so neat, because I've seen leaders that maybe haven't had the healthiest mindsets, and it leads to some pretty sad things. And so when you see a leader that is is thriving and full of joy and not, losing their minds. And I know you have times, I'm sure you're running
I was just going to say, maybe post-pandemic, there'll be a little more joy, but.
As I was saying that, Andrea, I'm thinking the same thing. I'm like, well, this year is a little unique. But no, it's just the excitement and the way that reframes the way I look at leadership and the dreams that I have. I mean, it is highly impactful. And because I would limit, like I've been saying before, it's self-limiting beliefs. They're so infectious. They're so disastrous when it comes to us moving forward in the things that, we're passionate about. So the way that you have laid that out for us, it's like, it makes it doable and attainable and something to really look forward to. So,
authenticity leads to joy. That is for sure. And that's what Denise was saying as well. If you feel like you have to fake it to do your job, you're not in the right job. What makes you smile? And so, being real and being yourself in your job has to happen, or it won't be a success and you won't be smiling.
Oh, that's so good. And it's not sustainable. And you're not, whatever community you're serving or business or organization is not going to get the best of you if it's not authentic, right? And it's not going to have the ultimate impact. So good. So good. All right. Wonderful. Let's keep this going. So Crystal, nice little segue here. We know that mindset is everything. So I know you've worked hard not to let negative thoughts keep you from understanding your value and self-worth. So can you speak to our guests here today, how you've been able to steer clear from some of those lies and remain focused?
Yeah, I'm actually really amazed that Andrea just talked about this, about imposter syndrome, because I guess I didn't know what it was called, but for the longest time, that's been something that I've dealt with, I actually remember walking across the stage to get my diploma in undergrad and thinking, I cannot believe these people are giving me a degree, and then again, when I got my master's, same thought process. It wasn't just like, intuitive, like, oh, yay, I'm here, I deserve this, whatever, it always kind of tends to go back to that place, or I don't belong, or, somebody's going to find me out. Even in the Army, I felt like, that negative self-talk that I'm not a real soldier, or I'm a bad soldier, or, that stuff really creeps in, especially during the really, really hard stuff for me. It's running a lot. But like, even now, I catch myself like going back to, when are they going to find out that I really, really suck at this? And what amazes me is I think that a lot more people than I ever knew, at least, kind of have that imposter syndrome, especially when you're the first at something, or you're the only at something, or you're, the outlier somehow. You kind of don't have that sense of belonging, maybe. But for me, whenever I get into that headspace, I kind of hear like this inner voice, this powerful inner voice. And me and my sister were laughing the other day because apparently both of our inner voices sound just like our dad, in his very thick Southern accent. When something is just not going our way, I hear, well, they're just idiots anyway. You don't win that beauty pageant. So, well, they're idiots and clearly they're blonde. Or, my sister, she didn't get a promotion or something, and well, they are idiots and they're missing out on you. And, divorce, it's, well, he's just an idiot and you are better off without him. So it's always very Southern, dad's voice in the back of my head. And I think I have to actively I think it's an active process, like self-talk, my own worth, and just like really practice that just in daily life too, so if I compromise on any other part of my life, if I'm in a bad relationship, a bad job, or any kind of toxic situation, at that point, I'm allowing somebody else to determine what my worth is. And I'm not okay with that. And so that daily practice of just evaluating if everything that I'm doing is in line with my values, if my current position and my current situation is in line with what I hold dear, am I actually practicing this? And I think if it isn't, you know, like Denise said, you know, if it's hard, if it's scary, if it's terrifying, you slide that piece of paper across the desk. You know, if it's scary, so be it. And actually, I think that, you know, fear is a good thing. I think that's how you know you're heading in the right direction.
Right. Right. Wow. It's good stuff. It's so good. I'm pretty sure based on the comments, Crystal, there's going to be a lot of people in Frederick with your dad's voice in their heads now. So a lot of head shaking. Yes. So good. I love your impression. That was just classic. And it's just so true. So thank you for sharing. So we're going to ask one more question to Jessica, and then we're going to switch gears into some Q&As with our wonderful participants and guests. So be thinking about those. I'll be looking in the chat here pretty soon, but let's ask Jessica this last question. So Jessica, I know that you have been intentional about spending time with other prominent leaders and business owners, kind of spurring one another on towards just greater levels of excellence. And so if you can share with everybody just some of the specific takeaways that you have learned that have helped you not only stay on track, but actually exceed certain goals that you've had for yourself.
Well, these really change every year for me. And so I think at the current moment, the three things that I'm focusing on every day are the mentalities, and some of it overlaps with what some of the other panelists had said. The first one is, it's a quote by Steve Martin, and they actually, there was a few academics who actually wrote a book on it, and it's called, the quote is, be so good they can't ignore you. And so whenever I'm getting caught up with things I can't control, or like, I think this is unfair, or like, why is it like this? You know, it just takes me back to like, okay, just focus on the work. Like, just make your work so good that they can't ignore you. Or sometimes you get caught up in the hierarchy, like this person is so much farther than I am, like I'm never going to be where they are, and all of that. I always just come back to that. The second thing is a book I actually just read this year, and it's called 4 Disciplines of Execution. Stephen Covey is one of the authors, and it talks about lagging measures versus leading measures, and it's applicable to, you know, a very sophisticated corporation, or, you know, if you're trying to lose weight. And it really like changed my business. It's changed my mentality a lot, like how I approach and like attack every day. And one of his big things is you have to put everything on a scoreboard that you can see, where you can track your success and become very concrete with your results. So I would really recommend that if you feel like you're spinning your wheels, or you're you know, you have goals and you just can't measure whether you're moving forward or not. It's been fantastic for me this year. And then the last thing, sort of like Crystal was saying, is I'm always checking my mind. Like, the mind is what do they say? It's like a very dangerous place to leave unattended. And so I have a tendency towards pessimism, for sure, like negativity. So I use Katie Byron's like questions all the time, constantly, on a daily basis, to make sure that my mind is staying in the place where I want it and focused where it should be. And I'm always checking it. And so if you're not familiar with Katie Byron, it's, you know, like whenever you're thinking a thought that sort of is not in line with your values, you test it, you know, and she has 4 questions, like, what is the thought? Is it true? Are you sure it's true? What's the turnaround? Who would I be without this thought? And so I use it a lot, you know, like, this person isn't calling me back. Maybe they're rejecting me. They don't like my project. Like, why aren't they calling me back? You know, and so I'm testing myself and my assumptions to make sure that I'm always assuming the best in every situation. So I can, and that's one of the things working for yourself, right? Like, you have to keep yourself on track. And another one I use is, it's called the 5 whys. It's the Toyota method. And you ask why 5 times to get to the bottom of sort of what the root issue is. So those are the 3 main things I think this year, at least, that are guiding my everyday, like from the minutia to the quarterly and yearly goals.
Awesome. That's awesome. And, you know, when you think about these big accomplishments, this goes for, you know, all of you ladies, you know, it really, you have to boil it down to those very specific steps. It's not one decision that you made or one, you know, path you pursued that ultimately just brought about all the success. It's these little things and your intentionality with how you're spending your time who you're spending your time with, what you're reading, what you're tracking, right? So that's just really, really, really good advice there, Jessica. And it sounds like you've got a lot of great voices that are guiding your way between, different books that you've referenced. Yeah, I know. And I'm thinking, I'm going like, because I'm a new business owner, right? I'm like, when does she find time to read? But you made it a priority, right? Like that is something that you don't question. So can you speak to that a little bit? How do you find time to handle the self-development side as well as run a business?
Well, I just find that like on a very pragmatic level, like whenever I'm feeling stuck or like negative thoughts are creeping in or I'm spinning my wheels or I'm not getting results, usually that's a function of me not putting food into my brain. Mm-hmm. And so just like you have to feed your body, you have to feed your mind constantly. And so one of my favorites is Tim Ferriss's podcast. If you're not familiar with it, it will like blow your mind. I listen to that constantly. I have a mastermind group, so we're reading a lot, recommending books. I get a lot of book recommendations from his podcast as well. And it makes a world of difference. And I also try to take some notes on it so I can go back, because if you're not remembering anything you read and if you're not implementing it,
what's the point?
There's no point. So I also do that. And, it doesn't have to be a lot. Even 10 minutes a day, one chapter a day. And then utilizing the sort of downtime that people just take for granted, like in the car, like that's wasted time. So I'm usually either like making calls or listening to something and things like that. Like anytime I'm waiting in a line, I'm a little neurotic in case you can't tell that. But,
I love it.
Anytime I'm like, is this wasted time? I do meditate too, so I'm not like constantly like. Anytime that I'm like, is this wasted time? Like, how could I be using this time better? Then I have like listening to something or like reading something.
That's awesome. That's so good. And name that podcast again. You said it was Tim Ferriss with 2 S's or 2 R's. One of those. Perfect. Yep. Awesome. Good stuff. Oh man. Well, I would ask all of our attendees to give a round of applause for you ladies at this point, because we are going to switch gears here to Q&As, but I will just say thank you for all that you've shared and just being so just engaging and just being so prepared for today to really bless our participants with it. I see lots of claps coming through on there. And I will say, I saw some other messages come through. You guys had some sweet things to say. I am a first-time Zoom moderator, so I appreciate your guys' affirmation, Jess, what you had to share too. That really does mean a lot. This is very much an honor and a privilege for me. So I'm super excited, but we will switch gears now into some questions. And I don't know, hopefully you panelists are seeing what's coming through the chat here. There is a lot of love. It is lighting up. So good. So good. So thank you everybody for being a part of this. So go ahead. This is your moment now to hear directly from them something that you specifically want to hear. I know you guys have gotten a lot of great nuggets and bits of information already, but maybe there's something you've thought about throughout this session that you're like, I really want to ask them this. And this could be a question that anyone answers or specifically for one of our panelists. So I am watching the chat now. You can go ahead and put in a question. Still loving all these comments. Thank you for your sweet words to all of us. Very affirming. This is really, when I think about it, guys, this is what She Week is about, right? It's about supporting one another. It's about cheering one another on and lifting one another up. So it's just so encouraging. Okay, so it looks like I got a question here on teaching people the way they should treat you. How do you handle being a super high achiever, reaching capacity, but no one believing you so that they keep piling it on and then you burn out? So I'm going to ask that again, then I'll ask one of the panelists to answer it. So on teaching people the way they should treat you, how do you handle being a super high achiever, reaching capacity, but no one believing you, so they just keep piling it on and then you burn out? So which of you panelists would like to answer that question? Anybody?
Well, I can speak to the teaching people the way they should treat you portion of it maybe. And this depends on if you work for someone else or if you have your own business. So I just want to acknowledge that first. But I have this conversation a lot. Obviously, I work with a lot of men, and they all love to mansplain me, talk down to me, tell me they have so many more years of experience than I do, and I know nothing. So, like, again, it sort of goes to the alpha energy versus the, hands up energy. And I'm so used to it at this point, it doesn't even faze me. But the most effective way that I found for that is to say it directly, call them out directly. And from my experience, it resolves it like that. We had it's been a few years, but when I first started out, I remember my kids were with me on a job site, and this plumber just kept talking down to me. And I told him to do it one way and he would do it another way. And I just, I lost my temper, which is never good to do. I got into a screaming match with him. I'm like, look, I don't care if you think I am the stupidest person on the face of the earth. I pay your salary, and when you talk to me, you will talk to me with respect, or you can get off the site. And so, I never had an issue with him again. And even down to sometimes, I don't know, somebody will be rude to you, and it just really just unnecessarily. And I'll say to them, I really don't appreciate how you're talking to me in that tone, like a clerk at a grocery store. Even down to that level, for some reason it sits poorly with me to let that sit, and they will back right off. So again, depends on the situation. You don't want to tell your boss off necessarily, but saying it direct, for me, I found is the most effective way.
That is awesome, Jessica. Thank you for speaking to that. And guys, I will be muting myself in between questions because we've got a little thunderstorm action right now. So hopefully that's not too distracting. Ladies, panelists, is there anyone else that wanted to speak to just the burnout piece of, kind of being at your limit and knowing, okay, I really actually need to say, no to this. And I think, Jessica, what you shared in terms of being able to speak up and just be very clear about what you need, I think that's, nail on the head. But is there anything else, ladies, that you wanted to speak to in that regard? All right. If you change your mind, you let me know. I'm going to go. We've got some great questions coming through here. And this one I want you guys to be thinking about, because it'd be neat if everyone had something to say on this one. But Julie Gaver mentioned everyone is into the one word concept. And Julie, I'm right there with you. Love the one word concept. I choose a word of the year as well. And so she would like to know if you guys have one word that captures what you want to have happen this year. And maybe you've already determined what that is. Maybe you're, maybe it had to pivot a little bit because maybe that is the word because of what 2020 has brought us. But does anyone at this point have a word that they are really leaning into for this year?
I do.
Great.
7. 7 for 7 million. That's what I want to do this year. I don't want to stop. I don't want to stop. This is, COVID it's happening. So what? I want to achieve the stinking goals that I set out for.
Yep. Powerful. I love it. 7, super clear. This is what I'm after. COVID or not, gonna get it. Love it. It's awesome. Ladies, anybody else a word of the year?
Amber, I've been doing this for about 5 years, and I agree it's a powerful process. My word for this year is deliver. And it's really me having gifts inside of me that I want to bring out. And for the last few years, I've made it a focus to help my husband in his business to take it where it needs to be, but that sometimes means that I don't do my thing. And so this year, it's been incredible that I finally get more time and get to put more energy to me so that I can deliver what I'm capable of. And so it really does work.
That's powerful. That's really, really good. Deliver. I love it. And you're clearly doing that, my friend. So that's so good. Anybody else? Any other ladies have a word that really kind of speaks to this year? And
for me, Jessica.
Go ahead, Jess.
I've been working on consistency this year, just being consistent, like I said, in leading measures from 4 principles to reach goals. That's what I've been working on.
So good. Consistency. I love it. Love it. And then Andrea, do you have a word to share?
Yeah, it's actually Thanksgiving because it has double meaning for me this year. So we are closing our semester the day before Thanksgiving, and I just want us to get there safe. I want all my students with me. I want my faculty and staff with me all the way to Thanksgiving. Nobody has to go home and we're there safe. That's my prayer 23 and a half hours a day right now. But also Thanksgiving because I know we can get there because of the power of the community that I serve here. And so being thankful for the option that that might even be possible.
Wow.
Because of who I'm surrounded with.
Wow, that's so cool. That's so cool. And you have your daily tracker, right, Andrea? Is that
90 days.
I knew you were going to know that number. That is awesome. Thanksgiving is a great word, and we are rooting you on for sure. That's so good. All right. And I think that was all, everybody. Perfect. So guys, it's so great. We've actually had a lot of questions come through, so I'm going to do my best to hit a few more. We've got about 15 more minutes left, so I'll do my best, but thank you for sending them in, even if we don't get to them. Okay, so Ellen Kaiser asks, do any of these women have anything that still, let's see, do the women have anything they still have to do that they are still holding them back from? I think, did I word that right, Ellen? Anything they still have to do that they're still holding back from? Let's see, is that, Ellen, you can put something in the chat there if I didn't word that quite properly, but I think what I'm taking away from that is just something currently in their lives right now that is holding them back, and maybe what they're doing to kind of get through that. So we can go that route, ladies. Is there something you can think of that you're actively trying to push through, and you're in that unstoppable mindset of like, okay, this is a hard thing, I'm held back by this, but I'm working towards coming through that. So anything come to mind in that regard?
So I can speak to this a little bit. So I have a mastermind with two of my friends, and mostly this is what we talk about each week, is that exact question. And, usually if one of us isn't reaching our goals, or there's a task we're supposed to be working on that's not getting done, the result, it's because of a block. So we're constantly like, what is our block here? Why is it? And then, it goes back to what I mentioned, the Toyota's 5 questions. Like, why am I not calling this person? Because I think they're going to reject me. Why do you think they're going to reject me? Because I don't have enough experience. Why don't I have enough experience? And then eventually you'll get down to some version of I'm not good enough, or I'm unlovable. Like, that's what everything boils down to. So we work like weekly on our blocks, and it can be like personal blocks, like my house is not getting organized, or professional blocks. So it's like constant pounding, like breaking ceilings, like getting to the next level.
Yeah, that's really, really good. I love that, of that really drilling down to get to the bottom, of something, and having an understanding of why you're held back in the first place. Because once you have that understanding, it gives you the ability to take action. So that is really, really, really good advice. So let's see, let me find another question here. Okay, we got one from Jennifer Gerlach. All right, were you ever afraid of what people would think of you if you did fail? Have you failed, and how did you face that failure? That's a great question. I know for some of those here, that was never an option, right? But I'm sure at some point in the journey there was that thought, right? That thought of what are people going to think if I do go after something so big and I do fail? Anybody have any thoughts on that?
I felt like I was afraid of failing every day in the Army. I think it was just such a different environment than like having your own business, where you kind of set your own goals and set your own standards and things like that. So the pressure that I felt was, am I going to fail this PT test? And it's so weird. I keep going back to this. I'm telling you guys, I was really unathletic. And then right after I had my oldest, I really wanted, the whole reason I joined the Army was for a shot. After about 2 years, I would get a shot at potentially being picked up for this thing called psychological operations. And I was, I didn't care what I got slotted as I could do anything for like 2 years, no problem, whatever. But then I got pregnant with Jackson, and the cutoff was going to be, like mere weeks from me getting back from maternity leave. And it just, in my head, I was like, okay, well, there's no way I can do that. I've got to get go from 0 to 100 and be in the top shape, not of just women, of everybody, you know, being picked up and being selected for this. And I struggled a lot. I really, really struggled. And in the back of my mind, you know, that negative self-talk just kept swirling and swirling and swirling. You know, what if I fail? You know, what are they going to think if I, you know, fail this PT test? What are they going to think if I fall out of this run? You know, even though there are so many things going on after you have a baby that wasn't going on before. And now all of a sudden I am running 5 miles and try not to wet my pants and, you know, like trying to do and achieve all the things that everybody else around me is doing when they are not in my current situation. And nobody knows that. They get a snapshot of you, you know, in that current situation. And that's all that you think that they're going to see. So for me, I actually did get picked up for that slot. I never failed a PT test. You know, every time that would swirl around in my head, I felt that, you know, real pressure. But it's just coming back to, who cares? You know, like, if I fail, okay, I'm going to make it such a big failure that, you know, it's worth it. I learned something really good.
Right. So you can't really lose, you know, if you got that mindset, right? You really can't lose. So that is fantastic, guys. We have time for just a couple more. I wish I could get through all of them. It's hard to pick which ones to go with here. Something we haven't touched on yet, though, and I think this would be beneficial to a lot of our listeners based on, you know, the polls and just the age ranges we have here. So one of our listeners would really like if someone could kind of speak to balancing the professional life and being a successful woman with motherhood and family. It's so important, especially now before distant learning is about to restart, how not to burn out and still have time for self-care and personal growth. So, and Jess, even if there's others that want to share on this, there is something that you had mentioned that I really would love for listeners to know. So if you want to kind of kick it off, and then other panelists, if there's anything you want to add, you can absolutely feel free.
Okay. Amber knows that in the past, every time I've been asked to be on a motherhood panel, I always decline, because I say, like, you don't want to hear my answer to that question. But I think the answer is, for me, you know, being, and like a lot of the other panelists coming up in male dominated industries, where you have to wear a black suit, you have to talk about the history channel, the history show you watched, and the golf game, and all of that. And when I started my company, I did it very intentionally, like, I'm in charge now, and this is how I want to do it. And so, like, I wear pink to the job site. Like, my kids come with me to the job site. I mean, we're not violating any OSHA laws, but I mean, you know, we were trying to do a quick turnover the other day, and my daughter was in there cleaning with us. They were there when I was got into the screaming match with the plumber. And like, people can create their own reality, you know, that they want for themselves and their lives. And I just think it's so great for kids to see their parents, like what they do for a living, see them interacting. You know, you can dialogue with the kids, like, what'd you think about that? My daughters are just as involved with the carpenter as my son. You know, I'm pushing them to be in there with a plumber so they can also see what's going on. And it just, it's nice for kids to see their mom handling conflict effectively, or, you know, just handling conflict. Yeah, so I just, you know, create your own rules, create your own reality.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. She was making me laugh, guys, when we were talking about this conversation, because she made it sound like she had nothing to say on it. But when we started getting into it, I was like, girl, this is so good. It's so good. I mean, the way that those kids are getting to have such incredible, what's that?
Yeah, I told you, I'm like, please don't ask me about motherhood.
And then, of course, I totally did. And you had great stuff to share. So I just think them getting that inside scoop and learning from not only, you know, what you're doing, but how you're handling real life situations. I think that's such valuable, you know, education for your kids, and just even more time together, even in the things that you need to do. So that's very, very helpful and practical information. And I love too that you're like, yeah, no, you're supposed to wear the black, you know, suits and talk about golf. But here Jessica shows up in her pink, you know, blazer. And I'm like, yes, so good. You go, girl. All right. Any other moms? And we all there's 3 other moms here on this call. So is there anything else that you guys want to add to this when it comes to, you know, burning out, self-care, anything you want to speak to in regards to at-home learning, which is very new for many in this season. So anything else on that note?
I just want to give a hats off to the single moms out there. I was really, I mean, I'm really, really fortunate because I have a spouse who basically became the primary caretaker. We moved for my job when our oldest was 6 weeks old. He never went back to a full-time job after that. So he just took it over. I wouldn't be sitting here if I wasn't given that. And I know what a blessing that is, even if sometimes it drove me absolutely crazy, because that switch of gender roles, frankly, was hard for me too. You know, why are my kids learning tools before they're learning their ABCs? I'm not really okay with this, but, so it's been good for both of us. And my kids don't see gender roles at all because it's completely switched in our family in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways, he's a very traditional male. He hunts, he does all those things. So they see all the sides of it. And I think it's been really good for them. But I'm lucky, and I know that. And so the people who are managing work-life balance without a partner or a really good support system, whatever that looks like, hats off to you, because I have sisters who have done that, and friends who have managed that, and you're my heroes, because that's just amazing.
Yeah. Well said. That's so true. So true, guys. Any other thoughts on that? We probably have time for maybe one more question after this. So anything else, ladies, on the mom front? I'm going to read through these questions. Let's see here. Okay. Yes, and like Jen said in the chat, there's an opportunity to connect with the panelists. So if your question did not get answered and you want to reach out to them, that could be a good opportunity to do so. So let's go back to, there was another question I wanted to touch on. Let's see, lots of good questions. Oh man, thank you guys for submitting these. Let's see. Okay, so panelists, what are your next goals that would shock us attendees? I like that. Is there anything that you are dreaming of that you're willing to share, that you're thinking about that could be, fun for the listeners to learn about? Not all at once. I know. Is it scary? Because now you're gonna have to do it, right? Anybody?
7.
I love it.
It called me.
That's good stuff. It's good stuff. All right.
Oh, I like that. They want to know what you would say, Amber.
Oh, about what?
Let's turn the tables.
Okay, go ahead. You got a good 4 minutes left, right? Okay. What do they want to know, Andrew, about my goals? Is that the question?
Yeah.
Oh, good stuff. Well, this is fun to be asked the question here. So this actually kind of works out because I was going to kind of segue and wrap this thing up, with just a couple brief thoughts. But I'm telling you guys, the timeliness of this this event and talking with Unstoppable Women, it's just so neat because, as a first-time business owner starting up in January, I had 2.5 months in of learning how to run a business before the world changed pretty dramatically. And so it was a wild experience, to say the least. And it's funny, as I'm starting to share this, I do need to remember what they're wanting me to ask. Let's see. What was the question, you guys?
What's a goal you'd be embarrassed of?
A goal. Okay, thank you. I was already on track with something else I wanted to share. So I was like, I don't even remember what they're wanting me to say. So I will circle back to that in a moment. I just want to speak a little more to this year and just hopefully leave you guys with a couple words of encouragement. And what Jen put in there, I love it. She's got some key takeaways from what the panelists share. So please, guys, go through that before you head out. And Jen, if you don't mind, when we wrap this thing up, I would love for you to save that chat. I'd love for the panelists to be able to see what was shared throughout the time here. So to circle back, and I will end on the goal question, but it's been quite a year, but it's been such an exciting one. And actually, when I thought about the goals I had early on in this opportunity in this business, it really was to love on the Frederick community, get to know them, support local businesses, shine a light on all that was good. And really, I wanted to build relationships. And that was probably what spurred me on more than anything. And for me, faith plays a huge role into that. I just wanted to love people well. I wanted to point them towards the joy that I have found in my life. And so that has been a blessing, because what's neat is when COVID hit, it kind of took relationships to another level. I mean, the willingness and the vulnerability to open up and really talk about where people are at, what they were struggling with. It was just very, very, very powerful. And so even though there's been challenges in running a business in a world pandemic, when I think about the big overarching goals I have for Frederick Lifestyle, those are actually happening exponentially, like at a much faster rate than I think they would have happened if it wasn't for what we're going through now. And something that has been shared several times throughout this time together has been about getting comfortable being uncomfortable. And that has been just an absolute game changer, because when you're willing to step out of your comfort zone, that's where some really powerful things have happened. And so it's very neat. And what's interesting about answering this last question about goals, it's like, I think before, if you had asked me a year ago about big, crazy goals, I would have been like, maybe more limiting in where, what I would say to that question, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So now there's not, I would say, one that's fully going to shock you and blow your mind and any of that. But I will say, a huge goal I have is just to be really a continuing just presence in the community with Frederick Lifestyle. So right now, and I'll just be very upfront with you guys, we're at 36 pages. I do have the desire to get this magazine to about 60 to 70. We'll see where we land in that regard, but you guys can hold me to that, because that is where I'm headed. I'm so grateful for the Frederick community and how they have just welcomed Frederick Lifestyle with open arms. And so I will keep doing my best to shine that light on all the beautiful things happening in our community and keep working to build up this business. So that is my goal right now, is to get the magazine at that rate. So thank you guys for what I'm seeing coming through there. Kim, yes, we absolutely need to talk. Thank you for all you guys have had to share. And panelists, before I wrap this thing up, is there any final thing you wanted to say, or just thank the attendees for being a part of it? I'll give you that second before we close up.
Yeah, thank you for attending and your feedback. I'm blown away to see the engaging audience and so many friends and people that I don't know. So it's been wonderful on this side too. So thank you so much.
Awesome, Jessica. Anybody else?
Same. Thanks for coming. Thanks for joining us in SHE Week. It's been really fun. And to my fellow panelists and our awesome moderator, it's been really enjoyable. Hopefully one day we can have a glass together.
Amen.
I would just thank everybody for their energy and enthusiasm, and also all the people behind the scenes, because you guys have done a great job pouring into us so that we could do what we did today.
Yeah, thank you guys. I mean, I love SHE Week. I think that it's something that I've always needed personally. So I'm just really, really grateful to be even, a part of something that's awesome, and to be with all these women that are just making stuff happen.
So good. Wonderful. Well, to all of you watching and to the panelists, cheers to a memorable SHE Week. Thank you for being a part of it tonight. Listeners, thanks for hanging with us for the full 2 hours. It's a blessing and a joy getting to spend this evening with you. I know we're all walking away with a lot of solid nuggets. So thanks again for joining. I know there's wonderful events coming the rest of this week, so I hope you get to enjoy those as well. And thanks for being with us.